The first thing I would like to talk about is copyright. It's probably one of the most easiest ones, and it protects artistic and aesthetic works of authors and artists. And what happens if, for example, people do not really comply with that? In the US, from piracy, where people, let's say, copy music, films, books, they estimated to about $12.5 billion every year that is lost because people should just not pay their license fees or buy it from the proper sources. So copyright is something that everyone can do, and it could be very powerful. On the other hand, there is a group that is called industrial property rights. These are rights usually that have to be registered. And there are three main ones: trademarks, designs, and patents. Trademarks actually protect the brand. They distinguish businesses, products, and services from each other. And violation to it is something that you might have seen maybe before, if, for example, a name is very much related to a very known brand. Examples could be like someone calls his business Hike instead of Nike, Starbucks instead of Starbucks, or Pizza Hut instead of Pizza Hut. The next right is design rights. Design right protects the shape and appearance of a product. So if you have a phone like a Samsung or a Sony phone or an Apple phone, the way actually these products are shaped is usually protected by design rights, because it helps distinguishing them from their competitors. And then the third right, which is probably the most complicated, is patents. And patents grant its owner a monopoly over a technical invention. And a good example, there is a Coca-Cola can, the metal cans with the ring pull on top. If you actually just consider the inventor of that ring pull, he patented his idea, and he actually licensed it to Coca-Cola, and he made $0.0006 per can, which is a very small amount of money, but it gave him actually 90 million every year until Coca-Cola came up with something different. Another right, which is always very much close to all these, is what we call confidential information or trade secrets. And that could be commercial or technical information. And again, if I may use the Coca-Cola brand, the formula of the drink itself has been kept secret for many years. I think now it's meanwhile more than 100 years. And as long as they do, they are protected. In an essence, copyright protects the expression of the idea, not the idea itself, which means that copyright protects works of literature, works of art, television shows, films, musical work, dramatic work, sound recordings, but also software that you might find in technical environments. So one could be protected by numerous copyrights, and a good example would be, for example, if you look at a movie. In a movie you have the screenplay, you have the voiceover, and you can see how this actually works together. The key characteristics of copyright, well, first of all, it's an automatic right. So you don't need to register it to be protected. As soon as you write the book and you have actually written it on paper, you are protected. Copyright gives the author of the work exclusive rights over certain uses of those works. That means that the author that writes the books, he actually can do many things, like he can make copies of it, he can distribute it, he can actually perform work in public, he can actually display that work wherever he wishes to, but also, and this is most important, he can make what is called derivative works. You all know probably J.K. Rowling's work, Harry Potter. So she wrote this book about this wizard defeating evil and having all of these experiences and stuff around it. This is the book itself, but it went to a movie, so she was able to also license the Harry Potter theme to the movie makers. Then there was work that appears on collaterals, like those pencils and things that, for example, kids buy. So whenever this theme shows up, J.K. Rowling was involved, and it makes her a lot of money. Trademark is defined as words, names, symbols, devices that actually identify and distinguish businesses from each other. Trademarks are all around in our world nowadays. So usually what you can see is the logos of companies. For example, ADNOC, Shell, These are oil and gas companies. Everybody knows them. And if you look at the logos, you would immediately know what these companies do. Same goes for like Etihad and Emirates. They are both airlines. But as soon as you hear the names, you know what this guy is doing. Similar things also in other areas, for example, like Jumeirah Group and Hilton in hospitality. And then there is one thing which even I would say is going a step further. Some trademarks are so famous that they don't even mention their names anymore. Look at Nike and Reebok. As an example, Nike actually in 2013 had a revenue of $24 billion US, and they don't actually own any production. They create a brand, people like the brand, people associate certain expectations to the brand, and whenever they see the mark, the consumer will actually buy those goods because they trust the brand and they like the brand. The more distinctive a mark is and the more well-known the mark becomes, the wider the mark scope of protection will be. So if you consider companies like Nike and Reebok, everyone knows what their products are, and they are actually well known all over the world. If you look like into more local brands, for such like as Alain Water or Masafi Water, they're actually known locally very well, but they haven't really expanded beyond the borders of this region. So if they would, they could actually become also more and more known, and then their protection would also increase the more they go out of the country. So the more you go out as a business and the more well known you become, the better actually you could be protected. First of all, trademarks are a registered right. They give the owner the exclusive right to use the mark. And it also would give the owner the right to prevent others from doing identical or new products with this mark. A trademark needs to be registered in every country where you seek protection for. Trademarks are renewable on a perpetual basis, which means that every time it elapses, for example, like typical 10 years, you need to renew them. But as long as you renew them and as long as you pay your fees, you will be protected. And if you look at brands that have been in the market for many, many years, such as Mercedes-Benz, as long as they actually pay their fees, they are actually protected and no one can use their brand. And trademarks actually come under a class system. That means different business sectors have different classes, and the more classes you choose, the more you basically pay, but the choice is up to the registrar. There are certain things a trademark cannot be. For example, something generic, like a table or an apple. You cannot trademark that. But if you do computers, you can actually call your business Apple because you're not producing apples. A trademark cannot be descriptive, for example, chocolate or razor. Cannot be deceptive, like super silk for cotton materials. And it cannot be contrary to morality or public order. For example, in the UAE it would be impossible to register an alcoholic beverage for a trademark. And of course, official emblems like flags of a country, you cannot trademark as well because it would associate that you are somehow related to the government. Design. The definition of design is the shape and visual appearance of products, which could be defined by factors such as contour, configuration, texture, material, and color. It could be 2D, it could be a 3D shape, your laptop, your iPhone, or even toys like Lego and others. A design right also comes with certain characteristics, such as design rights are territorial. They need to be registered. They also have a limited period of protection. There are fees to be paid, and they also come with a class system where actually the registering party have to decide which classes they want to go for. And again, depending on how many classes are chosen, the fees will be different and in every country. A patent is defined as a right that is registered in a certain territory in exchange for public disclosure. The owner of a patent actually gets a total monopoly over his invention, which prevents anybody else from making, using, selling, or importing it. So what are the steps to obtain a patent? There's actually 3 key tests that you have to undergo if you want to register for a patent. The first thing is called novelty test. Anything that has been already invented before or even disclosed to the public is no longer considered novel. So this is something which you have to prove, and usually this is done by a search in public media. The second test is much more subjective. It's called actually the inventive step or the obviousness test. And how it works is actually a patent office will come with something like an hypothetical person that actually challenges the patent applicant to say, well, what you do is actually obvious or is not really inventive to me. Anyone in the field with similar knowledge or know-how in this field would be able to come up with this idea easily. And then, of course, as a third point, whatever is invented needs to be able to put in practice, which means it has to be a service or a product that can be used in the industry. If there's anything you need to remember in this is do not disclose your idea before you have sought for protection. Because once you have told anybody, it is considered a public disclosure and hence no longer patentable. There are a number of exceptions to patentability, and every country has slightly different rules to it. Scientific and mathematical theories like Einstein's famous equation E is mc squared, he could not get a patent for it. Plant or animal varieties, like a new date palm, you can't get a patent for that. Schemes, rules, methods of doing a business, performing pure mental acts or rules of games, like the monopoly game rules, you can never get a patent for that. Another point which is very important, I believe, is when it comes to methods of treatment for human and animals. For example, just imagine you're in an operating theater and you would need to obtain a license from the patent owner in order to do an operation. Usually patents that actually go into this sector come with the drugs that are used or with the equipment that is used. So presentations of information is something that you couldn't get a patent for. For example, if a scientist describes something that he's publishing in a report, in a scientific report, he would not get a patent for it. Another point where you cannot get, broadly spoken, a patent for is computer programs, the pure coding of it. Think of Microsoft Excel or Microsoft in general. Their business is entirely built on copyright, so they can't patent those software. And then, as another example, I would say very important as well, if something actually compromises the safeguard of public or morality or other things in this space, you would not be able to patent that. For example, nuclear weapons. If you come up with a new way of a nuclear weapon, you couldn't patent that. Confidential information and trade secrets are a principle that actually looks after keeping things secret. So compared to, let's say, registered rights like patents, trademarks, design rights and copyright, you basically don't tell the world what you do. And the information that actually is typically kept secret in companies, for example, is commercial information or technical information. Commercial information would be things like you don't expose your customer database, you don't tell about your marketing strategy or how much money you are actually raising for certain projects. On the technical side, it could be things like recipes. Think of Coca-Cola or KFC. They keep their recipes secret just for increasing and keeping their business opportunity. Chemical formula, think of WD-40, which is a greasing agent. They could actually patent it potentially, but they have decided not to do so because their business is based on not knowing what's in it. Manufacturing sequences, like for example, some companies like even BMW, they wouldn't really tell you what they do in order to come up with something. And of course source code, which is a very famous thing to do in the IT space. Think of Microsoft. They actually base their entire business on keeping the source code secret. So if you look at it, most of the things they do, there is no way you can actually look into that. And what are the benefits of confidential information? Well, as long as you don't tell anybody, you are protected. So basically you don't disclose anything. And confidential information usually comes into play when there's no other intellectual property right that helps protecting or improving the position of your business. If there's anything you need to remember in this is do not disclose your idea. Because once you have told anybody, it is considered a public disclosure and hence no longer patentable. So how does someone decide how to protect the creation? The key question or the key point is that, first of all, you need to be clear on what is it that you want to achieve. There could be a certain scope of protection that you're interested in. So different rights offer different options. You could have a limited budget that allows you to do something but not everything. And maybe there's some type of IP that gives your business maybe a better push than maybe something else. Another key question is also, so where do you want to exploit your invention or your, let's say, IP in general? Because you should not forget that you protect yourself because you want access to market and protection in that market. You don't really care so much on where you come from. And then, of course, the length of exploitation. That means how long do you want to be protected in that sense? And you have to make a choice. Just imagine a patent versus a trade secret, where you have 20 years worth of potentially unlimited. If you want to find out more about Takamul, you can visit our webpage, takamul.gov.ae, or send us an email, takamul@tdc.gov.ae.